You're gonna hear feedback for just 1 minute and then I'll stop it. It is setting up our Zoom and there we go, we're in. Susan, can you still hear me?
I sure can.
All right, so I'm gonna admit them all in. So welcome everyone to our National Parks virtual camp. We see some of you from last time. Thank you for joining us last week for your tiny house. We're going to ask you, especially if the parents are around, if you can change your names to just your child's first name. So if we can do that real quickly, you can just click on your picture. You should be able to do it.
Done.
Excellent.
I learned how to do that in another camp, so.
Very good. So yeah, thank you so much for coming. If you go ahead and mute your microphones, just click on that little microphone until a red line comes across it. There'll be times when we'll have you unmute it, but for right now, this will help us a lot. Thank you so much. Aaliyah, if you don't mind just putting your first name up there for us. There you go. Well, welcome everyone. Again, we are very glad that you're here today. My name is Deja, and my partner in crime that does this with me is Susan. We are coming from North Carolina, and Susan's coming from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and we have a very special guest today with us. But Susan, introduce yourself. I just did, but tell me something fun about yourself.
Good morning, guys. My name is Susan, and I am in Albuquerque. I am a good friend of Miss Deja's. And Deja, I don't know if you even know this, I used to go backpacking when I was a kid. So I would pack a backpack and I would go for 7 days at a time, way up in the mountains.
Very cool. Well, I did not do that. I do adore to camp. I love to camp in a tent. It doesn't matter where. And I love to.
Plenty. Give me another one.
That's my claim to fame is that I like to. So again, we're going to ask our people coming in, our campers, just make sure you're on mute. And we're going to get started in just a moment. So Susan, if you'll go ahead and share your screen for us.
Sure thing.
So welcome to the National Parks Virtual Camp, part of Deja and Susan's innovation projects. We have a full 3 days planned. Our schedule looks a little bit like this. We're going to start together. We're going to meet a ranger from 3 different national parks. We are going to have a camp skill class, a cooking class. We're going to do a little bit of science related to the park. There'll be a campfire story, and then we'll have an engineering challenge, and then we'll move out of that. So Susan, before we get started, can you show them our virtual campsite?
All right, guys, you're going to get a link to this later on today. Everybody who's joining us has their own tent. And when you click on this link and come to see our campground, find your name. In fact, look at the screen right now. Do you see your name? Give me a thumbs up in the window if you see your name. Oh, I see some folks have found their names already. Awesome. You're going to click on your name and it will take you to your very own page in our little presentation. We want you to take pictures of what you do this week. So the things that you learned today from Deja, or maybe the cooking class that I do with you, if you do that at home, take pictures of it and then you can upload it to our campground so we can all see pictures of what you're working on. Since we're all virtual, we have to enjoy just seeing pictures and videos of what you're doing. All right?
And Susan, you're correct. All the parents will receive an email about an hour after our camp, and they can click on there. So I grew up going to camps, and the way we start every morning with camps is with this. Yes, so we have had the official bugle call, and today we are in Yosemite National Park, which is very, very exciting. Susan, I'm going to let you go ahead and unshare your screen so we can introduce our first amazing guest to you, Anastasia Roy, Ranger Roy from
Yosemite National Park.
Yosemite National Park. So, Anastasia, thank you so much for joining us. I know it's a little earlier on your side of the country, but we are so happy that you're here today. Anastasia, can you tell us how you got to Yosemite National Park?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was living, let's see, I think I'd say it all started when I went for my first hike, which I was a little bit older. I really wasn't in elementary school. I wasn't in high school. I was in college, and I went for a hike in the White Mountains in my home state in New Hampshire with a bunch of third graders. I was going with a bunch of third graders who were friends of mine, and we were doing things like looking at the flowers on the side of the trail. And then after the sun went down, we were listening to how the sounds of the birds changed, and we were looking up and seeing the stars and how they were the same, but also how they were kind of different, where it was really dark, and you could see even more stars. And on that hike, I was hooked. I wanted to be outside as much as I could be. And I realized that it's a lot of fun to explore the outside with kids. And so I decided that I wanted to do some jobs that took me into the outdoors and where I could work with other people and work with kids. So I've had I ended up working in the White Mountains in New Hampshire in these huts where you hike in and you bring your sleeping bag, and a group of people cooks dinner for you. And that was me. And then they take you on some nature walks and that sort of thing. You sleep over in bunk beds, and then in the morning you can hike to the next hut, and you don't ever have to go back to your car until you're all done. And then after working there for a few summers and a few years, I ended up having a volunteer job at Canyonlands National Park, where all of the rocks are red, and I had never been that far away from my house. But it was so beautiful. And then I found some other jobs that I didn't get to wear this nice flat hat, but I did get to wear a big backpack. I was a hiking guide in Denali National Park, where people would come up and I would hike them all around, and there were no trails even. There were a lot of bears. It's pretty fun. But eventually I made my way to Grand Canyon National Park, and then working with kids, and then Yellowstone, and then Acadia, and I made it here about 2 years ago.
Wow, so you have done a lot of work at the parks. That is absolutely amazing. We were supposed to be at Denali and Kenai Fjords this summer, and then our plans kind of changed with all the stay-at-home orders.
Oh.
Yeah, but it's on our list to get there pretty quickly. So Anastasia, we know sort of your journey, but did you go to school? Can you tell the kids about how you got there through school also?
Yeah, you bet. I had, thankfully, when I decided I wanted to work outside, I had a 4-year college degree that applied really easily to the jobs that I was trying to get. I had chosen to study plants because I thought they were really cool and interesting, and because I knew that when you study plants, in order to find them, it means they have to take you outside to show you where they grow. And I also studied geology, and it was the same thing. There are a lot of aspects of science that I found interesting that, most of it you spend all the time thinking about it in your head, and it's very conceptual. But when I enrolled in geology classes, it meant that I knew that I was going to be going on a field trip every week, and I was going to get out into new spots I'd never seen. So I got an undergraduate bachelor's degree in geology and biology, plant biology.
So much fun. And it does, you're right, that doesn't keep you inside. That definitely puts you outside. So we know a little bit about Yosemite. We're actually going to talk about El Capitan today for our STEM challenge. And you mentioned the dark skies, which is going to be our science lesson today. So great job tying in everything. But tell us a little bit about the park. Like, why is it such a cool place to be?
Well, it is, it's cool for so many reasons, but one of the one of the things that makes it special to me is that in California, which is sort of famous for being very warm, although there's a lot of different types of places here. In California, Yosemite is a place that is full of snow in the wintertime. And that means that it is full of life all year round. And because of the mountains, which are, the very lowest place in Yosemite is about 4,000 feet, and the very highest place is over 13. The mountains actually like squeeze all of the rain out as the air passes up and over them. And so it dumps all of its moisture in snow. And that means that there is water for life all year round. And that means that it's a place that's kind of cool temperature wise to go hiking, even when it's really, really hot nearby. And it means that there's also just a rainbow of flowers and birds and plants, animals, you name it, that are able to find a niche and to find a home that fits what they need up here. So for me, it's kind of that being in a wet place, a wet and snowy place, in a part of the country that's very dry and hot, that I think makes it so special. And that is because of that really special difference between the lowest part of Yosemite and the highest part, so that it can squeeze out all that snow. It's also, oh, sorry, go ahead.
How are your trees? You have any tall trees there?
We do. We have Sequoia trees, which are the most famous, one of the most famous of all the trees. If you look at the National Park Service emblem here, they call it the arrowhead, you'll see a really big tree on there. And that's actually an image of our sequoia that's on every park ranger's outfit right here. And that represents all of the plants that we protect. But the sequoias are probably the most famous of all of our trees. We have a lot of different kinds, including some firs and a lot of different kinds of pines, and a lot of, like here down low, there's a lot of these kind of beautiful scrubby oaks. But here's a picture of a sequoia tree. I don't know whether you can see my friend Lindsay. She's like a tiny little human down here at the bottom. She's standing at the foot of it, and they are the biggest trees on the planet. They grow not too far from here, actually, just a couple minutes drive.
Wow. So I've seen, this might be in the wrong place, but is there a place somewhere where you can drive through trees, or is that in another park?
You used to be able to drive through trees here, but no longer. Basically, cars just got too big. And so there's a few spots where you can go and see where there's historical pictures of people driving through a tree. It's called the California tree. If you look up the California tree, you can see some old-fashioned cars driving through it. But you can go stand right inside of it with your family. So there's like hiking trails that you can walk up to it and get your own photo there.
Any animals?
There are so many animals here. There are over 400 animals in Yosemite that are vertebrates, which means that they have a backbone. So that's fish and reptiles, amphibians and mammals. So over 400 just vertebrate animals. And there are ones that like to be in dry places. There's ones that have to be in rivers. There's ones that have to be in lakes. And there's some really special high alpine animals too that can only find their habitat at elevations of like over 10,000 feet. So in the highest mountains, when you think that no one's there and it looks like the tundra, and you think you might be in Alaska, and you might hear a ee! And then you look and there's sort of a fat burrito shaped rodent thing looking at you, telling you to go away. And it might be the yellow-bellied marmot, or if you hear an even higher ee! It might be the itty bitty pika. They're both rodents, little chiselly things.
Susan loves the pika. We just went to Rocky Mountain National Park, and she was just dying to see some pika. Kids, why don't you, if you have any questions, to throw them in the chat window, and we'll see if they are appropriate to ask Anastasia. But Anastasia, can you tell us of an experience you had at the park that's kind of cool?
I think one of my favorite experiences was with walking through Yosemite Valley. Let me see if I got a picture of it. I was in the Yosemite Valley, and I was walking around with a group of kids, and we were going to this beautiful waterfall. You can see how the people show you the kind of the scale of the waterfall here. This is Yosemite Falls. And we were walking across a meadow that's across from it. And I looked up, and right nearby, I want to say maybe like, when I say right nearby, I mean like 2 football fields maybe, was a black bear. And it was just sort of moving gently across the landscape, sniffling, pulling at sort of invisible things in the grass that I could see, or sedge and grass. And me and the kids, we just sat there for probably 20 minutes. We knew that we were a safe distance because we did the thumb test. Have you all heard of the thumb test?
Share that with us.
Okay, so basically, if you're trying to figure out whether or not an animal's too close, put your thumb out and you close one eye, and then you stick your thumb over the animal. And if that animal kind of like, see how my hat sticks out around your thumb if I'm really close to you? But if I back up and I get smaller, you can fit my whole hat behind your thumb.
Yes.
That's how you do the rule of thumb. So if an animal is sticking out around your thumb, then you have to back up until it fits behind your thumb.
I will remember that. That is a great rule of thumb, if you will.
So we just watched it, and it was just grazing and finding its own food and being a bear, doing bear things, which looked like a lot of work, honestly. It looked like it was spending a lot of time eating.
Susan's favorite animal are moose. Now, I don't know if we have moose in Yosemite, do we?
No, it's not wet enough. Do you have moose in New Mexico where you are?
We do not, but we have them in Colorado.
Oh, yeah.
So if we just go a little bit farther north, you can see them there. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And Susan introduced me to the pica. And now I'm just obsessed with those.
Oh, I have something for you then. After we're done talking, I'll send you. We have a kids draw your own pica activity that we launched a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, fun.
Ranger on staff did. So I can send that to all of you, and you can see how adorable. You all can see how adorable the pica is.
That would be fun for all these guys to do.
Yes, we'll add that to our email. So Anastasia, these kids possibly might want to be rangers.
Awesome.
When they grow up. Are there any things they can do right now to start preparing for that?
Well, basically what you can do is getting curious about your own neighborhood and trying to figure out what the places are in your neighborhood that might have hidden stories. That might be hidden stories of animals that you didn't know that live there, or people that lived there whose stories aren't always told all the time that are interesting to you. Another thing that you can do is research and read. Essentially, just zoom around online, read books, and find places that you think are interesting and read about them and learn what's going on there right now and kind of stay plugged in. Most of the people that I know that got ended up as rangers really young were already kind of obsessed with a park or two by the time they were like 14 or 15. And another thing you could do that's really general is just learn how to be responsible for yourself outside. And that doesn't mean that you need to learn how to climb a mountain or to climb El Cap. It just means be the one who thinks about when you do go out on a journey, whether it's just around the park near where you live, or whether it's something a little further out, whether you're in a special spot. Think about what's in your backpack. Think about what's in your bag. Think about what you might need during the day. I kind of like this because it means I get to pack all the snacks I want. I like to eat a lot. So that means that I get to think about food, and I got to think about all the tasty things I want to eat and put a lot of food in my backpack, and thinking about water and sunscreen and any layers that you might need, knowing what's going on with the weather. And if you're somebody who can be kind of thinking about what might come down the pipe during the day, then that means that you could probably be plunked down in a national park that you aren't even familiar with, but you could be somebody who would be able to take care of yourself and to be out there when you have those amazing experiences, like getting to watch a bear graze in a field for a couple hours.
Those are great ideas and great recommendations for our kids. And we also know that the mantra is leave no trace. And if you pack in, pack it back out. So those are things they can start practicing now. Do we have any questions in the chat window?
It looks like Michael has got a question to ask.
Okay, Michael, you can unmute.
Doesn't like food.
You also like food? Excellent.
So there you go. That's your first step in being a ranger. You have to like food. So Anastasia, first of all, you're a rock star. Thank you so much for being with us today. I have put it into a presentation mode for YouTube right now so we can get a really cool picture with a ranger. So everybody make sure you're smiling really big and looking at the camera so we can get a good picture here. And here you go.
Cool.
Oh. Well, obviously, Anastasia, you need to talk about that real quick. What is that?
This is a bear skull, which it's not actually a real bear skull. It is a plastic replica, but it's very, very fancy. And it shows you how they have teeth that they can grind up things like roots and berries and vegetables, just like you and I have. Like if you take your tongue and you run it back where you eat carrots, like back here. Those are really good at eating vegetables, and it shows you that they also have sharp teeth in the front to eat meat, like your sharpest teeth.
Very nice. And they don't want to eat us. Like, no. We stay away from the bears.
Yeah, they don't. They would really like to eat ants. They'd rather eat maybe 400,000 ants than eat you. Don't take it personally.
No. Any more goodies there to share with us? I don't mean to cut you off. Did you have any?
No. Let's see. I just wanted to. Can I show you two more things?
Absolutely.
This is an animal that you would definitely get a chance to spend a lot of time with in the park. It's our most common animal.
Anybody know what that is?
Riley.
Oh. Krista, what do you think it is? She's
Riley.
Go ahead, baby.
A squirrel.
Yes, it's a squirrel. It's a ground squirrel, so it has kind of little ears. But they're very plentiful here. And when you come to visit, resist the urge to feed them. They can find their own natural food too, but they're a lot of fun to watch, and you can learn their wild ways. Let's see, one last thing. I just wanted to show you my favorite hike that I did last summer. I can't believe I did it, but I got right on top of Half Dome.
Oh, wow.
Which was very, very tough, and it took me all day. I started at 7 in the morning, and I hiked until 8 at night, so I had my headlamp on when I was done. But it was really beautiful, and it's there for you to hike too, if you want to come up to Yosemite and go hiking.
So obviously we do want to do that. We run what we call the National Parks Expedition Challenge, and Yosemite's on our list next to get there. So we hope to get there soon, and we'll look you up because we want you as our ranger for our virtual field trip. Susan, any more questions for Anastasia?
Anastasia, can you tell them a little bit about the famous person who was first at Yosemite that kind of is important for national parks? You know,
are you thinking about John Muir?
I am, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So John Muir was one of the people that Yosemite is famous for. He had a big, long beard, and he did a lot of writing that became really famous. And he basically was one of the first people in America to think about the outside as a place to go to enjoy nature. I know that sounds a little weird, but mostly before that, a lot of people were going outside either to think about how it could be turned into items that we could use at home, and how they could put up manufacturing facilities and that sort of thing. Or there were people that were thinking about having a really good time, but they weren't necessarily interested in being like in a natural place. And John Muir was famous for writing a lot about how being outside, no matter where you are, and being with trees and being in nature can be a way to feel the most at peace and in the most sort of at one with all of creation. And so I'd highly recommend reading some of the things that he wrote if that's if you like to read. And just know that even when you go outside today, if you're not in Yosemite where he liked, which was his favorite place to be, just know that no matter where you are, no matter where your backyard is, you can go outside and find that same kind of little piece of nature that John Muir was writing about. And you can connect with that tree or those clouds, and find that kind of amazing piece that he prized so highly. Yeah. Thanks for bringing him up. He has some amazing writing.
He's a
Absolutely.
rock star. I like to wear his quotes on t-shirts.
Nice.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. You're welcome to hang on and stay with us. But if you have to get back to work, if you can send us that little activity,
I will.
we'll make sure it goes out in the email. Kids, can you do a quick wave goodbye to Anastasia? And hopefully you'll get to see her in real life soon. That would be great to get out there to California to watch her. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
So our next activity is a camping skill, but before we do that, I'm going to put out a poll. So I want you to look at the poll that just popped up. How do you like to camp? In a tent, in a camper, just outside on the ground under the stars, or a hotel? You'd rather camp in a hotel. Tell us what your favorite place to camp would be.
That's not camping, Deja.
Well, that's glamping a little bit. If it's not a really nice hotel, I guess we can count that. But there's some people that like to go to parks, but they don't want to stay like on the ground. So they may stay at a lodge or a cabin or a hotel nearby. So it looks like we've got 8 people to vote. Let's get a few more to vote, and then I will end the poll, and we will see what we have. Nigel, never camped in your life. Well, let's consider that this week we are virtually camping. So we might can add that to our list. All right, I am going to go ahead and end the poll. And wow, so we have a majority of our campers that like tent camping. Nobody was brave enough to say just outside on the ground. I agree. There's a lot of critters out there that I don't think I want running over my face at night. And we do have a hotel person. Very cool. All right. Thanks for sharing that. So our next activity is our skills class. So if you got the email, you know you need to have a couple of sticks, or I have some pencils, some wooden pencils that I can use, and maybe some string or twine. Now, if you don't have it, that's okay. You can still watch and learn. Oh, look at those sticks that Nigel has. He can build a whole shelter there. So we're going to do something called lashing. Now, Susan, I'm going to be very honest with you. It's not something that I do extremely well, but I think it's something that we can learn to do together. We don't always have to be the expert. So I'm going to sort of learn with you. So I have my 2 sticks, and I have some twine, and I'm just going to pull off a pretty long piece and go ahead and cut it. Today, we're just going to do a one lash. We're just going to lash or tie together 2 sticks in the shape of a plus sign or a T or a cross shape. And there's a couple of ways you can do this. If you're a Boy Scout or a Girl Scout, you may know something called the Clove Hitch. Now, when you finish camp today, again, you're going to receive all of this in an email, so you can go back and look at the directions for this. But we're going to try to go through it together. So I'm going to just tie mine together in a knot. So I have my 2 sticks just sort of held together at 90-degree angles. We call that in a math class perpendicular to each other. And I'm going to take one piece of the string and just wrap around my axis maybe 3 times just to get it to stay in place. And then this little extra piece here, I'm just going to use to tie a little knot with my long string, just so my string doesn't move. So once I've done that, I just tied a knot. I didn't do a clove hitch. I didn't do anything fancy. I just tied enough so it would stay together. Now look what mine immediately does. It starts to fall. And that's where we're going to learn how to lash. Now, Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts say do it thrice and then do it twice. So thrice means 3 times and twice is 2 times. So I'm going to try to show you how I'm going to do this. I'm going to go around. We're going to call this bar, the one going straight across, my A bar, and this one my B bar. So I'm going to go around the A bar and go behind it and then go around it on this side. And then I'm going to do it again. I'm just going to keep going back and forth so that I'm just lashing around my horizontal bar. So I'm just going around and then behind and then around again. And if I do it one more time, I've done it 3 times. Now, if I let go of my string, you're going to notice that my cross sticks are now a little bit straighter. They look more like the T or the plus sign that we were doing. And so technically, I could let that go. That could be the end of it. But when I push down on this, it starts to move. So I need to anchor it again. So this time, instead of going around this side and this side, I'm going to do the top and the bottom. So I'm going to go around the top and around the bottom and around the top and around the bottom. And I'm going to do it one more time. So now when I push, it's not going to move as easily. So you can lash as much as you want to. Lash means you're connecting pieces of wood together with rope or twine. But I'm going to stop talking for just a moment, and I'm just going to do a couple more. So I'm going to do the sides again. And then I'm going to do the top and bottom again. And when I feel like it's pretty sturdy, like it's not going to move, I'm just going to go ahead and cut off my twine. And I think what I'll do is I'll just wrap it around halfway and just loop the rope inside of itself to sort of pull a little knot. And now I have one lash made with 2 sticks. Can everyone put theirs up in the screen? Just hold it up to your camera if you were able to do it. Now, if you're not able to do it yet, don't forget, you can do this tonight and you can take a picture of it and upload it to your campground, to your tent. I like these. This looks pretty good.
Hey, Deja?
Yes.
I wanted to point out Gerard and Sarah are using, it looks like some craft sticks. So if you're having a hard time with the round sticks that you found outside, or like I got dowels that I found at Dollar Tree, you might try craft sticks because they don't roll around on you. And so they're not quite as tricky to hang on to.
That is a great idea. And I also found some carpenter pencils. And by the way, Riley and Mary, your carpenter pencils were mailed today, so they're on the way to you. but I had some carpenter pencils that are sort of flat like this. And then I also found this. I found some PVC pipe upstairs in my closet. So I was able to do one like this. Now, here's the important thing, guys. Don't get rid of this, because we're going to continue this tomorrow, and we're going to add 2 more sticks to this. So tomorrow when you come back, what I would like for you to try to do is to move your, so I have mine right here in the middle. I'm going to move it over to the side, because tomorrow I'm going to add a stick here and here to make a tic-tac-toe. So we're going to be lashing what we call a frame tomorrow, because on Thursday, we're building ourselves our own camp stool. We're going to build something that we're going to be able to sit in. Okay, so let's put this over to the side. Make sure you put it somewhere where it doesn't get messed up. And Susan, I don't know about you, but I was doing that and realizing in North Carolina, it's about lunchtime. So I was feeling a little hungry there. So I'm wondering if you could take us through a little cooking class, knowing that you may not have all the stuff with you guys, but watch it so you can do it later. Chef Susan.
So I put up on the screen the recipe for what we're going to do. And a recipe is a set of directions, right? And it's always good to read the directions before you start out. So the recipe for our fruit kebabs says that we need to have an assortment of fresh fruit. And you could pick any kind of fruit. Sometimes we like to pick fruit that we really love. Other times you might want to pick fruit that maybe you have never had before and you could try it. I also suggested if you want to, you can have mini marshmallows. I decided to stay on the healthy side, so I did not get those today, but you could. And you need either some bamboo skewers or some wooden skewers, and I'll show you in a sec what mine look like. The first thing that we're going to do is pick our fruits. And then the second thing that we're going to do is wash it. I already took care of that step because I'm not near the sink, so I figured I would do that ahead of time. And then we'll need to peel it. And then I'm hoping that you have some grown-ups nearby that can help you with the cutting part. After you cut it, then you thread it onto your sticks, and then you have some skewers. And some people, Deja, like to dip these in yogurt. That's something else I didn't do for today, but you said.
I was going to do that, but my husband ate the last of the Greek yogurt. So there is none.
So Steve enjoyed it instead. All right, I'm going to switch my camera over so you can see my table. And you can see that I've got an assortment of fruit right here. That's a banana, right? I peeled my orange already. That's why it looks like this. I've got some strawberries. Strawberries right now in Albuquerque, Deja, are really, really good. So I had to put those in. And then I've got this one right here, which I think, you know what, guys, when I was your age, I had no idea what this fruit was, but now they have them in school lunches all the time. This is a kiwi. And then this one right here, I haven't cut yet because it's kind of fun to cut into it. This is a mango. These are my skewers. Your parents probably have some of these and use them for barbecuing. You can get these at the store. You could also, like, I know Deja was having a hard time finding one this morning, and so she used a straw. What a great idea, right? Recycle a straw that you have in your house.
And Susan, I am going to cut it into a point. So that when I get ready to skewer, it'll work for that.
That's perfect. So some things we have to peel to get ready. And I didn't peel the kiwi because I thought I would show you how I do it. I cut the end off so I have a little space to start. And then I use my vegetable peeler to just peel off those sections, right? And then once you get it all peeled, then you can very carefully cut it into some pieces. And for our kebabs, it really works better if you have chunks, not slices, because you need to have enough of it on there that you're able to keep it on there. Now, I'm not going to leave my pieces sitting around. We need to stay kind of cleaned up. So I like to have a bowl that I keep all my peelings and things in. It makes cleanup easier, and your parents will be much happier with you if you have a bowl to put stuff like that in. So I'm going to very carefully take my knife, and this is called a paring knife. It's a small knife, but it still is pretty sharp. I should never touch the blade end of it. Never, never, never. And then I'm going to cut it like this. And again, I'm just going to do some chunks, Deja, so that we have enough to put a skewer through. Just like that. Now I'm not quite ready to put them on my kebabs yet, so I have a bowl right here that I'm going to put those into. My strawberries, I like to eat as much of the strawberries as I can, but this green part is not usually a part that I like to eat. So I'm going to very carefully, again, trim that part off. And I want to make these fruit pieces bite-sized so that I'll be able to get them into my mouth. So I just cut my strawberry in half, again, into my bowl. My banana, well, should I eat the banana peel, you guys? What do you think? Probably not, right? So I probably need to peel my banana first. Now I ate half my banana for breakfast already, so I didn't have to take the top part of it off. And then I'll cut some pieces that are kind of a larger piece, right? So that they stick on those skewers. And into my bowl they go. And my orange, I might just want a few of the sections. So I'm going to open it up and give you the sections like that. And then again, I'm going to use my paring knife very carefully, keeping my fingers away from the blade. Cut up some pieces into my bowl.
Susan, Nigel shared that that the peels are actually good on bananas.
Are they really nice?
Yes. So I think that's pretty cool. I may try one later because they may have some extra vitamins in it.
That is cool. Now, this is the fruit that I don't eat very often that I chose to try on my skewers. This is called a mango. And mangoes have a really large pit in them. And so you have to be careful when you're cutting into them. I like to cut the mango down the side like this and get the fruit part of the mango away from that big pit or seed. And then I'll cut it into my pieces because otherwise it's really hard to get it away from that seed. Excuse me. So there it is. Now I don't want to eat the peeling of the mango, but I've discovered that cutting into the mango like this and making those chunks are the right size. And then mangoes are kind of fun because you can pop them inside out like this. See how I did that? And now I can either take my knife or I can take my fingers and peel that mango right off the skin of it and put it into my bowl. Doesn't it look nice? It smells pretty good too. Sometimes mangoes are funny. Sometimes mangoes smell like feet. Have you ever smelled that? This one smells pretty good though. It must be right.
Susan, I'm watching the campers already got their fruit cut and they're starting to add it to their skewers. And in fact, Stacia is already eating hers. I love it. I can't wait. I want to do it.
All right, here we go. So I've got all of mine in a bowl. I'm going to get my skewer and I want to give you a safety tip. These skewers, if you're using the wooden ones, have really sharp ends on them. And if you put this into your finger, it hurts. So be really careful as you're stabbing. I like to get it started and then move my finger to the side of what I'm doing and then pull it on from there. And you want to make your skewers look nice because somehow things that look nice taste better, I think. So do some alternating, maybe an orange and then a strawberry, and then there's that mango, and then there's some kiwi. I like the kiwi because it adds a little green, and then my banana. And just like you do in math class sometimes, I'm thinking Aaliyah's probably good at this and Krista's probably good at this too, because you guys are in the younger grades that are working on patterns and things in math. So I started with orange here. I went all the way through my fruits. So now I'm going to do another orange one to begin my pattern all over again. Now I think that eating food on sticks is kind of fun. So that's one reason I wanted to do kebabs. But the other reason I wanted to do kebabs is because if you have friends for family that you're doing something to prepare for, like maybe you're going to do, I don't know, have barbecue hamburgers or something with your family this weekend, you could fix fruit kebabs and be the one who's taking care of the fruit salad, but in a fun way. So you might want to think about doing that. So looks like I need another thing of mango. And I think my skewer is just about full. So there you go. Now, after you do that, you're going to want to do some cleanup. My hands are super sticky right now. I always have a paper towel nearby. This paper towel is wet, so I can wipe my hands off, and then I have a dry one to dry my hands with. That's just me wanting to stay a little bit cleaner and not quite as hard. So as we finish up this morning, I know Deja's got some science for you. You might want to be munching on your fruit kebabs while you are listening and doing some science with Deja. Just be careful. Don't stick that sharp end directly into your mouth. I don't want you to hurt yourself.
Yeah, and what I like to do is, well, what I like to do, because mine is gone now, is push it up so I can grab the end and then keep pushing it up. I added little marshmallows to mine because I love little marshmallows. So just to let you know, I did that too. Thank you so much. It's been fun to watch them make this. And again, if you weren't able to make it with us, you can make it later on. Susan, that's looking very delicious. I wish I had the mango. Would you be okay if you shared your screen for me?
I'm working on that right now for you. Oh, we've got some things going on in the chat. Deja, can you take a look at those while
Yeah, Nigel was telling us that you can eat the peels, that they're very good.
Okay.
So I am going to try that tomorrow. So we've had the ranger talk to us about Yosemite. We've had a camp skill. We've had a cooking class. And now we're going to talk a little bit about the science. So Yosemite has amazing starry nights. And one of the reasons they have such great starry nights is they are located away from what we call light pollution. And during this light pollution, if you live in the city and you look up at the stars at night, it's sometimes hard to see the constellations. But you can if you live, in the country, if you live somewhere without big cities around you. Susan, if you wouldn't mind, if you can advance the slide for me. So it has a very dark night sky, and it has a designation of a dark night sky. So let's talk a little bit about constellations. A constellation is a group of stars that you can see, okay? So you have to be able to see them, and they form a pattern when you're looking at them from down in your backyard. Sometimes you may see an animal, you may see a mythological creature or a woman or something you can't really describe, but they all have these pictures that you can paint in your mind. Now, some of them will just have any shape you want because you're just looking up, but there's actually been some work done where people have defined the shapes so you can tell what stars are located in those constellations. So let's hit the next one. It's pretty useful to know some of the constellations because if you can look up in the sky and recognize a pattern, then you can know where you are and what location or direction you're looking in. So these constellations were used back in the ancient times, and they were used to be able to keep track of the calendar. If you notice, when you look at the moon every night, you see different shapes of the moon. It's the same moon, but it looks differently when the light hits it or reflects off of it. And we have what we call a new moon, a half moon, a quarter moon. We have waxing and waning. Well, we use stars and constellations just like that. And people back in the day would know when to harvest their crops, when to plant their crops by looking up at the sky at night. Now, we want to actually make a constellation that you can use. So in your email, I asked you if you had a flashlight to bring it. And I also asked if you had paper and pencil, if you could bring that too. So you're going to see what we're going to do right now as Miss Susan hits the next slide. I have given you a couple of constellations to look at. So this first one is Orion. So what I would like for you to do is you can do two ways. I want you to take a piece of paper and you can either place it over your screen and trace just the lines and the big dots, which are the stars, or you can just hold your paper down on your table and just look at the screen and draw it. Now I've given you two sizes. If you have a really large flashlight, you might want to use the image on the left. If you have a smaller flashlight, you might want to trace the image on the right. If you have a very small flashlight, then you may just want to look at what you see and draw it on your paper. So let's take about 2 minutes and we're going to do Orion the Hunter. So again, you can put this over your screen and very, very gently trace it. You don't need to trace the circle part. Well, yeah, let's do that so you can get that inside your flashlight. So go ahead and trace. Make sure you put a little heavier marking on the dots and then let me know when you're finished. I'm going to do that too. And I can tell that you're doing it. I see some of you are putting your pictures up or your paper. I see it over your screen right now. Now we're going to have 4 of these that I have created for you. But we're only going to work on just a couple of them right now. So go ahead and draw. Now, if you look at this, you might see, since we've got this name, the hunter, as someone who is hunting animals. So you might see, some people say they see the drawing back of the bow, which is what they would have had. All right, once you get your drawing, I need you to cut it out. So use your scissors if you have those and cut out your drawings. I have already done that. So I'm going to
just to clarify, do you mean around the circle or do you mean cut on the lines?
That's a good question. So I would cut on the line, around the circle. So if you can see mine here, I have traced and I've cut it around the circle. So I just have this little disc. That's what we're going to call it, just a little disc. Now, the next part of this, you can use your pencil or you can use a straight pen or a thumbtack, but your pencil will work. These are the dots that I made larger. Now I need to punch a little hole through those. So I can use my pencil and just push through those holes all the way to the other side. Make sure you don't put your finger on the other side of the paper. I don't want you to stab yourself. If you had an extra skewer, you could also use that as your little tool. I'm actually using a little thumbtack. So I was actually able to put it through. When you get to that point, you should now have a disc, which is what we're going to call it, with holes in it. And if you can see, I am putting light through these holes. And if I'm doing it correctly, you're going to see a few streams of light. So I'm going to see if my husband is listening on YouTube. And if he is, if he can come out here, because I'm going to show you how you're going to turn your bedroom tonight into a constellation. So Steve, if you can come out here. And he is going to cut off off the lights for just a moment. So it's going to be pretty dark in here. And I am going to now turn them back on, Steve, because I did something wrong. And I apologize for that. Boys and girls, when I was working on this, I was using some thicker cardstock, and you may be using some just copy paper. So if your paper is too translucent, if you can see through it and it's not catching the holes, you can use a piece of black construction paper or dark blue construction paper and trace it again. And I'm going to do that very quickly, because I realize some of you may be using just white copy paper, and you want to be able to get the light to go through your holes, but not through the actual paper. So let me try this again. Again, I just used my pattern and I punched my holes. And now if we can get the lights off. So now you can see more of the stars through here. And if I were, which you're not going to see this, but if I were to do this up on my ceiling, I can see the constellations. Oh my goodness, that is so cool. So I wasn't sure I could see it in the garage, but I can. I have Orion here, is what I use. And with my flashlight pushed up against it, and then now I'm pointed at the ceiling, I have Orion. Thank you, Steve, for working the lights for me. So this afternoon, when we send you the email, you're going to see this slide, and then you're also going to see the dog. Hercules, and the Big Dipper. Now, you can make all of the constellations, okay? There's about 12 to 13, I've got to check that. I think maybe 13 constellations. If you want to look those up and make a little pattern for all of that, so here's how you're going to share that with us. When you take a picture of this, see if you can get someone in your house to take a picture of you using your flashlight to make your constellation. Now, obviously, I want you to go outside later on and really look at those stars tonight. But in that moment where you can't, you can make your own constellation. I would like to show you now some video of Yosemite at night. So Susan, when you hit the next slide, if you could just move it over to about 1 minute and then go ahead and
Oh, hang on. I'm having trouble moving it forward, Deja.
it just started from the beginning. We're just going to play about a minute of it. I want you to see the dark skies.
Here, there we go.
I think when people come up from the cities, often one of the first things I hear is, oh my God, I can't believe how many stars there are. And it's true that there's an infinite amount of stars. And when you live your life in the cities and the suburbs and places surrounded by lights, you don't really get to appreciate how profound and magnificent the night sky is.
We think people have been looking at this night sky from this place for maybe 8,000 or 9,000 years. For me, I just feel that kinship with people across time, the people I'm standing here with presently, as well as the people who have been here before.
Okay, Susan, thank you. So this is about a 7-minute video that I encourage you to watch tonight that shows you how they set up their telescopes at night, and you're going to hear from a few astronomers, and you're going to hear from a few park astronomers. There are national park jobs that you can get as an astronomer, where you just get to look at stars and talk about those. So can we unshare for a moment? And I want everyone to hold up either your flashlight or your little disc so we can get a really cool picture. I'll get you in just a moment. Here we go. So let me put you in gallery view. So let's hold it. Oh, nice. Oh, I like the big pink flashlight. So you had to really make a large disc for yours. Very cool. And we still have people eating their kebabs, which I think is very cool. Well, Susan, we have learned a little bit about Yosemite from Ranger Anastasia. We have done a few camping skills. We have eaten a delicious little fruit snack. We've learned a little bit of science and did some hands-on pieces. I want to launch one more poll before we go to our campfire stories. So I meant to do this one. Hang on, let me move it to here. Right after the cooking, but I got excited about the stars. So, do you like to eat food that has been cooked over a fire? That's going to be very important for us to know for the next 2 days. Do you like to eat food that has been cooked over a fire? And if you've never tried, that is absolutely okay too. We're going to be able to share some experiences with you tomorrow. And this is going to help Susan and I do a better job with you when we're launching some new things tomorrow. All right, it looks like everyone has answered, and we have 7 or 70% that said yes, they like food cooked over fires, and then a couple that have never tried. So thank you for sharing that. Susan, I know that today when you were talking to Ranger Anastasia, you were asking her about famous people, and she shared John Muir. But there's also someone else famous. And I think it's time for campfire stories with Susan.
Absolutely. So there's a few friends here that we have with us today that know me because of the job that I have during the school year. Deja or Aaliyah or Krista, do you guys want to unmute and tell everybody what is my job? Krista, are you doing it? She's working on it.
Okay, go.
There you go.
Go ahead.
A librarian.
You got it. I'm the librarian at the school where Krista goes to school and Stacia and Aaliyah go to school. And Brinley and Cody are my niece and nephew, so they know what I do, right? One of my favorite things to do is to find books that teach me things. And so the story that I have for you today is called The Camping Trip that Changed America. And this book talks about national parks and where they came from. And it talks about that man, John Muir, and it talks about this other man that Deja is telling you about. Now, sometimes with books, I like to read them cover to cover, and other times with books, I like to do something that's called book talking. And this is a longer book, and I know you guys probably don't want to sit still for the longer part, so we're going to do a little bit of both. I'm going to read some of it, and I'm going to book talk some of it. And I will definitely show you the pictures because the pictures are pretty important. Take a close look at this picture here. And here you can see these two guys, and they are sleeping out under the stars. So the poll that Deja did with you earlier, would you like to sleep in a tent or in a camper or under the stars? These two guys slept under the stars. So this is about Theodore Roosevelt, John Muir, and our national parks. T.D. and Johnny, those are their nicknames, didn't have much in common, but they shared a love of the outdoors. They both loved a good story too, and that was enough to change America. Theodore Roosevelt's family called him T.D. since he was a boy. He grew up in one of the oldest and richest families in New York City. T.D. was a short and brawny with a fashionable mustache. He loved the outdoors, hunting, fishing, and riding horses. He attended law school before becoming a politician. Theodore Roosevelt became the youngest president of the United States and lived with his wife and 6 children in the White House in Washington, D.C. You might have heard of him as Teddy Roosevelt. John Muir's family had called him Johnny since he was a boy. He grew up in the Midwest, the son of poor immigrant farmers. Johnny was tall, thin, and quiet with shaggy hair that curled into a long beard. He loved the outdoors, studying, sketching, and writing about plants. He hiked the American wilderness alone and wrote about his travels. John Muir became a world-famous naturalist and protector of wild places with a special love for the Yosemite wilderness near his farmhouse in California. They both love the outdoors, but in different ways. In 1903, in the White House, Teddy Roosevelt was the president at that time. He settled into his favorite chair and he loved to end his busy day by reading. And this night he chose a book written by John Muir. Muir's adventures in California's Sierra Mountains sounded just about perfect to the busy president. It was strange then when Muir ended his story by asking for help. Help for trees. He said the wild forests were vanishing, and he called on the government to save them. The president thought about the mountains for a long time. Most people, even his own experts, thought America had so much wilderness that it couldn't ever be used up. Was John Muir right? Could the forests disappear? How could the government help? As president, TD needed answers. Roosevelt wrote to John Muir. The president was planning a long trip to the western states, and he asked John Muir to take him camping in California's Yosemite wilderness at the end of the trip. If America's forests needed help, the president wanted to see those trees for himself. Now, he was the president, you guys. Everybody wanted to see him. And so everywhere he went, people would meet his train in these big crowds, and they would gather around and they would want his autographs, and they cheered and they waved flags. And he was great. He was very hospitable, and he said, oh, absolutely. But finally he said, you know, I've got a camping trip to go on. I need to go. So May 15th in 1903, the train reached the end of the line in the small town of Raymond, California, about 30 miles outside the Yosemite wilderness. He found men that were sending his bags to the best hotel in town, but Roosevelt said, no way, I don't want all those bags. Pack me the smallest bag you can. I'm going camping. And he took off, and at that time there were no cars, guys. He was traveling in a wagon, a covered wagon, or a stagecoach. TD shook Johnny's hand and said, I've enjoyed your stories. Roosevelt boomed, enough pictures, I want to go camping. And so he hopped, not on a car, not in a stagecoach, he hopped on a horse and took off with John Muir. And this is the artist and the illustrator thinking that he probably said something like this. I feel just like a schoolboy again, racing off through the hills on these horses. I think he was having a good time. And I don't know about you, Deja, but if I were the president and having to do all this stuff in Washington, D.C., I think it might be a nice break to get to go camping. This is where the story changed. Now, he was wanting to go see these trees that were so special to Muir. Well, Muir led him into Yosemite. And these are the trees that you got to see the real picture of when we were talking with our ranger friend earlier. These trees are gigantic. You guys, this is not an exaggeration. They really are that big. They're even bigger than that. So Muir and Roosevelt rode past these magnificent trees, and all of a sudden Roosevelt started going, there's something special about this place. At night, under the branches of a towering sequoia called the Grizzly Giant, TD lay on 40 thick wool blankets that his men had laid out for him. Johnny made a bed from some branches and wrapped himself in an old cloth from his sack. He told TD the funny story of meeting his first bear. Now, in the book here, you can tell they're telling the story about the bears and how surprised Muir was to have met this bear. The next day, May 16th, 1903, TD and Johnny rode higher into the mountains, trading stories the way friends do. As the horses plowed through the drifts of snow, they reached a peak called Glacier Point. Glaciers carved this entire valley. We saw pictures of this earlier, and I think, Deja, we might need to go back and see the real picture of this valley that we have. This is what Yosemite really looks like. They camped high above the valley floor, and Johnny made the president a bed of branches. They settled near the fire for warmth, and Johnny began his story. This whole continent is a great garden. My children should see this place, said TD. I hope it's still here for him. So Muir was doing his job and telling the story of where all of these plants and animals and landscapes came from and how important it was to save it. On May 17th, an overnight storm blew in, spreading 5 inches of fresh snow. Dee and Johnny woke under a coverlet of white flakes. They shook them off like 2 old grizzly bears. "Bully," said Dee. "What a glorious day." On horseback, Muir and Roosevelt rode down into the famous Yosemite Valley. The granite formations towered above them, and they passed the sheared cliff of Half Dome and the fierce face of El Capitan raising from the valley floor. If you were to go to Yosemite, those are 2 things that you would see there. On their last night together, John Muir talked to the president about life in the wilderness. People were destroying wild land to make money from it. Ranchers cleared forests, prospectors mined gold, and companies planned to build hotels and shops throughout the valley. There was no one to stop them. "If they keep building, the wilderness won't last another 10 years, said Muir. "How can I help?" said the president. "Keep it wild," Muir said, "and protect it forever." Together, T.D. and Johnny imagined a different future for America. What if everyone owned the wilderness? What if both rich and poor could spend time out in the open? And what if we could save the forests for the children to come? This is the end of the book where it talks about what happened next. Teddy Roosevelt went back to Washington, D.C., and he decided to start the whole process of having national parks. He's the one that said we need to protect these areas. And so now we have, Deja, remind me, how many national parks are there?
So we have 62 national parks, but we have 420 national parks, monuments, memorials, landmarks, seashores, and preserves.
Yeah. And I put a background in today. I'm not really out here in the woods, guys. This is a fake background of a picture of a place that my New Mexico friends, this is in New Mexico. This doesn't look anything like Albuquerque where we live, but this is a spot in New Mexico. This is called Valles Caldera, and this is a National Historic Preserve. It's part of the national park system, but it's not designated exactly a national park. We have a bunch of different areas in our state. Miss Deja, I don't know if you're actually in the national park, but I know you're really close to the national park. Tell them about where you are.
So I am in the Great Smoky National Park. So you can see behind me, this is where we would have been camping on the water. So through the Great Smoky Mountain National Park, there's a lot of campgrounds. And this is the little river, called the Little River, that runs through them. And we always like to get our tent right on the side where the water is because we like to listen to it at night.
Yeah.
Susan, thank you so much for sharing that story.
Now I flipped over to another National Historical Park that we have in New Mexico, just because I thought it might be fun for you guys to see the difference. This one is not in the mountains at all. This one's actually out in the high desert. This is called Chaco Canyon, right? So it's so worth it if you and your family can get out and explore our country and explore all of those national park areas that belong to all of us. That's why they're there.
Thank you. And Michael says we probably want to call this Susan's Corner. He thought that was the new name. Susan, I'm actually going to share the screen this time, if that's okay with you.
Perfect.
All right. So let me go back down here. So again, thank you for the great story. Now we're going to move to the part where we're going to give you an assignment, an engineering challenge. So I'm going to go ahead and present this. This is El Capitan, or El Cap is what they call it. This is rock-faced mountains. And I want you to watch just a quick video of the only man that has climbed it freestyle, with no ropes or harnesses. And watch this carefully because this is going to be part of our engineering challenge today.
Money's in a year, America's strong, the young one, latest not without Campground, and harness no ropes attached. The mind is set on it since he was born. The fate El Capitan, with 3,000 foot wall of granite in the center. It would be possible to scale with safety with a little done. It's called
Desha, we're not hearing your audio.
Okay, hang on a second. I lost my screen.
Look at this breathtaking home. Boundaries of 2,500 foot summit that held 4
Okay, hang on just a second.
Alex is climbing all his life. But he told us usually.
So can you hear me at all, Susan?
We can, yeah.
All right, so let me just tell you about this guy. He has been climbing since he was little, and he wanted to climb to the top of this without using any ropes, and he just feels for the cracks and climbs all the way to the top of this. I am sharing this with all of you on the email today, so you can actually watch the video. But here's our challenge. Yosemite National Park is in California's Sierra Nevada mountains. It's famous for its giant ancient Sequoia trees, the Bridal Veil Falls, and the granite cliffs of El Capitan and Half Dome. Now remember, our ranger climbed all the way up on Half Dome. So El Capitan or El Cap is famous for climbing, but some people have even climbed it without ropes. It's kind of scary to think about that. Your challenge is to design shoes or gloves or ropes or all of those things that will allow the next climber to climb. And it could be solo or it could be with assistance. So what I want you to do is do a little research on El Capitan, and then using paper around your house or some extra pieces of cardboard or some fabric, design a prototype of some new shoes, some gloves that he could use or she could use. So what we're going to do is we're going to brainstorm for just a minute. So I'm going to unshare my screen, and I'm going to let you unmute yourself if you want to share some ideas about what you want to try to build. So you can build, you can design new gloves. You can use your regular shoes and put something on the bottom of those, or tell us what you would put on the bottom of those so that they could allow you or someone else to climb that mountain. Does anyone have any ideas about what they may try to design or build? If you do, just unmute yourself for a moment. And it could be you still want to think about it.
So Deja, I'm wondering if something sticky on my shoes might not help. If I had shoes that were sticky so they would adhere to the rock wall better.
That's a great idea. So what you could do, Susan, is to take your own shoe and trace it out on a piece of cardboard. And then on the other side of it, just start experimenting. You might want something that is sticky or something that builds friction. So runners have different grooves on the bottom of their shoes that help them grab onto whatever track that they're running onto. If you are a runner and you may have spikes in your shoes, if you play baseball or soccer, that sort of holds onto the dirt. So definitely a shoe. Think about a glove that you could build, because obviously you would want some gloves to be able to grab onto the rocks. And also they use chalk to put onto their hands or gloves so they can grasp. So maybe you want to design a little pack that they can wear around their waist that will allow them to get their chalk out easier. So that is going to be your challenge, is to create something. Now, Anastasia just wrote me an email, and she says that if you will share your designs tomorrow, can be just drawings if you want, she will share them with the national parks. And then Susan and I will also be sharing with the national parks, Yosemite, and other parks that have mountains that you can climb. So that is your STEM challenge for today. And then Susan, obviously we want them to take pictures of their constellations. You might want to take pictures of your lashing. If you still have your fruit kebabs left, take a picture of that, and take some pictures of your STEM design challenge. And then can you tell them one more time what they're going to do with this campground, and I can drive for you.
Absolutely. And Deja, I think I linked it, if that's the same one that I put in there.
Perfect.
So when you get the link in your email, it will take you here. Find your name. So I know that we have Michael here with us. Michael's tent is all the way on the right-hand side. He's going to go and he's going to click on it. And this will take him up to his own personal campground. And this is the page where Michael can put pictures of what he's done and how he's doing his challenge. Okay. If you want to look at other people's, you can click on home and go back and click on other people's tents, but don't change anything on anybody else's page. Only put stuff on your page.
So we know that Riley and Michael and Mary were here last week for Tiny House, so they have some skills in this. If you're not sure how to get your pictures onto the computer, then just have your parent email those to me. They have my email, and Susan and I will put those up for you. Okay, so don't panic if you can't get them there. And then, so as we end today, I hope that you had a good time. We're gonna ask you in just a moment what your favorite thing was. But these are some things that you need tomorrow, okay? This will also be in the email, so don't panic. But you need some more sticks and twine because we're going to complete part of our lashing. I would love for you to bring in some rocks from outside. If you have a magnifying glass, you can bring that. If you have an iPhone or an Android, there's a magnifying glass app on there. You'll need your paper and pencil again. And then Susan, tell us about cooking tomorrow.
So tomorrow we're going to use your favorite kind of jam or jelly. So mine happens to be raspberry, but yours might be grape, yours might be strawberry, apple. You decide what kind you like, either jam or jelly, or you could get a pie filling if you wanted to. You'll need to have some bread. And if you like to have a little bit of cinnamon sugar to put into it, you can. We're going to make some miniature camping pies. The other thing that I think I'm going to use is either a cookie cutter or a glass where I can cut out and cut the crust from my bread away. So if you want to gather that too, you can also do that.
And if you want to participate in the science lab tomorrow, and I'll put this in the email, you will need a little bit of clay or Play-Doh and a sugar cube. That's all you're going to need. Now, we're going to finish out our day together with a camp song. Now, I have my guitar here, but I need you to know that my grandson took away one of the strings when I wasn't looking. So we're not going to end yet, guys. So hang on to your questions for just a moment. But we're going to sing our camp song, and then I will stop the YouTube stream, and we'll talk a little bit. So here we go. If you know it, you can sing with it. Day is done from the sun, from the hills, from the sky. All is well, safely rest. God is nigh. And that's what we would end our camp every night with at the campfire. So, favorite thing about today or something you learned. Mary, you know I'm starting with you because I see you first.
I liked the cooking part.
Mary, I saw that you were dipping something. Tell us what you were doing with your kebabs because you were getting fancy.
Well, I was just stabbing the fruits because they were weird to pick up. I don't like them.
You weren't dipping them in something?
No.
Oh, okay.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Mary. Gerard and Sarah, do you want to tell us your favorite thing today or something you learned?
Go ahead.
Look at my spaceship. Really?
So we're thinking about stars and a little spaceship there. Krista, noticing you joined us today from outside, which I love. Tell us something that you learned or liked today.
What'd you learn today, or what'd you like? Did you like the kebabs?
I like the kebabs.
Krista, tell us what fruit you put on your kebab.
What fruit did you use?
I put apples, grapes, strawberries, bananas.
Grapes. I should have done grapes. I totally forgot about grapes. What a great idea.
Thank you, Krista. Brinley and Cody, something you learned or something you liked today?
Cody liked the flashlight, and I liked the cooking.
Very cool. And I like your little caps. It looks like you're actually out camping. Nigel, tell us about your something you learned or something you liked today?
I liked the cooking class. It was fun.
Good. Did you like the ranger? Meeting the ranger from Yosemite?
Yeah.
Michael.
Cooking. I've always wanted to learn cooking. I've actually come up with my own recipe of a hamburger.
I love that. What's on it? What makes it special?
So, well, you know how in hamburgers they have the hamburger patty made out of ground beef?
Mhm.
And how it's just flat, small?
Yes.
This one you really need a mouth for.
Do you have favorite stuff to put on it?
So what you do is you hollow out the ground beef and put sloppy joe inside of it. That's what makes it really big. Then you put it, I think it was, I forgot because I cooked this a year ago. So I think I put it on the stove or in the cast iron.
Uh-huh.
And then we put lettuce, and then we put either like ketchup or mayo on it. Those are your choices. You can put ketchup and mayo on it. And then you just need a really big bite out of it.
Well, it sounds delicious, and I have not eaten yet, so I may have to go in and see if I can find any of that. Susan, that makes me think of a cooking camp might be fun.
It might. It might.
Yes, I did it.
Aaliyah, what did you learn today, or what was your favorite thing?
I like the kebabs.
Yeah. Aaliyah, what fruit did you put on? Did you do grapes like Krista did?
Yeah.
Did you? What else?
And pineapple.
Oh,
and
yum.
strawberry.
That sounds yummy.
Thanks. Thomas, what about you?
I like the kebabs.
The kebabs were a hit today.
Guess so, yeah.
Oh, no, wait. There's also my brother.
Oh, yes.
Henry.
What did you like?
The fruit kebabs.
Nice. Thank you. And Riley?
The fruit kebabs.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, so your assignment is to reflect on what you did, take some pictures of some of your stuff, think about your STEM challenge. What could you design or create for climbers? So you could sell it to REI or to Dick's Sporting Goods or to a big company like Columbia. You could actually sell them your ideas so they could create this equipment to sell to climbers. And we will see you tomorrow at 12 o'clock for another fun-filled day. And we're going to be at Mammoth Cave in South Central Kentucky with Ranger Jennifer. So we're going to have a great time there. Thank you so much for joining us. Happy camping, everyone. Put out any fires that you may have started there at your campsite, and we'll see you tomorrow.